Hello everyone! I am Alice of KHR Arts and Cloud Orchid Publishing, and today we are going to talk about some of my favorite memories from the author events that I've done. So to begin with, one of my favorite types of experiences, and I feel like all authors can really relate to this, is anytime that I have someone come up to my booth, whether it is a fan or a reader, or it's a person that's meeting me and my books for the first time, is someone that shares with me that they are really inspired by me or really inspired by my books. Those are always some of my favorite memories at these events. And it's not even like vanity validation or anything like that. It's, as a creative person, as an author, it means a lot to have that kind of validation that what you're doing matters. And while it's something that you shouldn't need to have in order to create the things you're creating, it is an incredibly motivating and validating thing to have happen. So I love it when I have fans and readers come up to my booth at conventions and tell me all about the book or multiple books that they've read, that I've written, and telling me specific things that really inspired them or really meant a lot to them, and about how that did something positive for them. One of the most common ones that really is very near and dear to my heart is when young girls read my books and then tell me that that inspired them in terms of that they want to be a writer too. And then seeing me and reading the books that I've written motivates them even more, that it's like, this is possible, that they can do this, and further motivates them on that goal that they have. And that is such an honor as an author to hear people say that my work inspires them to continue moving forward with their goals. Because let's face it, y'all, being an author is really hard. It is really hard. It's probably one of the more difficult art forms, not necessarily in terms of like, oh, writing is harder than dance or writing is harder than art or whatever. They're all difficult in their own way. But writing is a special space that's hard compared to the other creative arts in that it's not performative. And I've talked about that in some of my other videos, is that typically nobody sees what you're doing until it's done. And that can be so difficult to keep pushing through, even though you can't share what you're doing until it's done. Whether it's in terms of, because of the legality of it, that you can't post things online because then it's considered published. And a lot of traditional publishers won't accept it, even under those benign circumstances, just because of the way things are. As well as, I can't exactly post videos of me writing because that's literally just a video of me just sitting here tippity-tapping on my keyboard. That's not interesting to watch. It's interesting to watch someone compose a dance. It's interesting to watch someone paint a painting. It's not interesting to watch a writer do their job. It's very boring, and it's honestly very weird to watch. We do weird stuff while we write. Like, we're making faces, we got our hands all over our face, we're like all sitting all like gremlin in our chair. Like, it's not aesthetic. It's not a fun time from an outside perspective. Sometimes not a fun time for us. It can be difficult, and being a source of inspiration to keep people going, to keep people motivated, is an incredible experience that you can have at these events, with having that one-on-one connection with fans and readers. One of the specific things that I had happen that honestly wasn't even book related. It was just me existing as me, but it was at a book event, and I need to be a little bit general to protect this particular person, but I do try to be loud and proud at events with being a part of the rainbow community. I am intersex. It is a thing that a lot of people don't know what it is, or they have very limited information about what it is, and it oftentimes gets forgotten about. Being loud and proud about that, and I have my fan that has the symbol for intersex. It's the yellow flag with the purple circle on it, and so my fan has that to kind of advertise as, number one, hey, I am a fellow queer person. I'm a safe person for other queer people to be around, and just other people to be around as well. And also, if anybody knows what that is, then that also lets them know, hey, like, you can talk to me about that. Like, I'm out and I'm proud, I'm advertising it, you can have a conversation with me about that. And I have had those conversations with people, and it means a lot to them, because you don't meet a lot of people who, one, know they're intersex, or two, are out and loud and proud about it. Those are very rare things. And so with this particular thing, I'm gonna try to not get choked up. I had an intersex person approach me at an event, and they were talking to me, and they were very bubbly and excited, and it was their first time being at an event like this. And they were just there to vibe. Like, they were just there to experience. Like, they didn't have a plan. They were just there to have a good time. I don't know how we got on the subject, but they were talking something about being a part of the rainbow community. They did not specify that they were intersex. And me being me, I decided to, be a little extra fabulous. And I pulled out my fan, and I was just like, yes! Did the whoop open, the hard dramatic open, and just, yes, queen, that whole thing. They immediately just froze. Their jaw hit the floor, and they just immediately just shouted at me, "Oh, you're my first intersex person to meet." And I was just like, oh, my heart. But it meant even more. Not that just that I was their first intersex person that they met, but that they were also intersex. And so I was their first person to see out in the world existing, owning who they are, being proud of who they are, and just acting like, yes, this is totally normal. I don't have to be worried or scared or embarrassed. That just, yeah, I'm awesome. And that was just earth-shattering for them. And they told me their story. And that's part of why I'm trying not to get choked up, y'all, is the things that were done to that person are horrific. And unfortunately, that is a thing that still happens in our country, is the terrible things that can medically and physically and psychologically be done to intersex people, because so many people think there's something wrong with us, and there's not. Here to tell y'all there's not. And giving them that validation that this is something to be proud of and not ashamed of was just mind-blowing for them. And having that moment will live in my heart forever. It was so special, y'all. And that's a big part of why I love doing these in-person events, is that I wouldn't be able to have these type of experiences otherwise, to have these kind of connections. And while I like to joke that, yeah, I would love to just, live in a closet forever and be a goblin and just work on my writing and not have to interact with people. And when I say live in a closet, I don't mean like being in the closet. I mean like, I'm gonna hide away from the world and not be around people, goblin, that kind of thing. As much as I love to joke about that, at the same time, life is meant to be experienced. And a big part of that is experiencing connecting with other people. And doing these events is my way of doing that, of making those kind of connections. And being able to effectively be a core memory for someone, a positive core memory for someone, is just such a blessing and such an honor. And it's so worth putting up with the annoying experiences, or putting up with stress, or putting up with the events that end up being a goose egg or end up being bad for whatever reason, is that there's always the possibility that then I will get to have a really amazing experience like that one. So it's those kind of interactions that just make it so worth doing this. And even though that had nothing to do with being an author or writing books or whatever, that's also a part of just doing all of this as an author or any creative person, is that you get to make those kind of connections with people, and those can have a huge impact on you, on that person, on other people, and on your journey as a creative person. And so always be ready for those opportunities to happen. Of course, make sure that you are keeping your peace and you are being safe and you are doing what you need to do for you. Make sure that you're also allowing for that vulnerability. Make sure that you're not just sitting there just being a brick wall. Make sure that you leave at least a little bit of vulnerability for people to be able to be vulnerable with you, because you never know where that can take you. And so that's definitely up there with some of my favorite experiences. Another type of favorite experience that I have at these events is I love it. I absolutely love it, y'all. When I keep seeing the same people over and over again, in terms of that, I will see a person at an event, and then at the next event, they'll recognize me and be like, oh, hey, it's you, blah, blah, blah. And then maybe the next event, then they're like, oh, you're here again. And this time they want to buy a book from me because now their interest is piqued. Like, oh, you come here often, kind of thing. And then the next event, they've read the book and they just want to tell me how excited they are, that they just love this and love that and blah blah blah, and what other books do you have, this was so fun, this was so great. And of course, that is the name of the game. That is the goal of us authors, is we want people to read our books, we want people to like them, and we want people to like them so much they want to buy our other books. That is the end goal, y'all. Like, underpants, question mark, profit. Like, that is literally the secret sauce that we want, best case scenario, to happen. But that process of that happening happening is such a great experience to have, where you start recognizing people, you start seeing them, and they start knowing you, and the parasocial relationship in the positive way, not the weird stalker, dangerous way that a lot of people have taken things too far in the book community as of late, but in the positive way where they recognize you, you recognize them. You're able to have a conversation about your books, about the things around your books that they like, the things that they thought about it, what influenced them about that, the things that they enjoy, things about them as a person, all that kind of stuff. I love having those experiences with my readers. I love connecting with my readers. It brings me so much joy to hear their thoughts, to hear different interpretations of the story that I put forth in the world. I feel it is so flattering when people see a completely different perspective than what I intended with a story and be like, huh, I never thought about it that way, but absolutely, sure, why not? Just all of that. And it also helps you as a writer to know what resonated with people, so that then you can also continue to improve your future writing with, wow, this really worked. This was really memorable. People really liked this. And to continue to apply that in your future writing. All of that is just so important and just so core to being an author and doing these kind of events. Another one of my favorite memories with doing these events that I do is back when, not when I was first starting out, because when I first started out, I was doing this by myself, but as time went on, and I still wasn't what I would consider experienced, but I definitely wasn't a noob either. I was somewhere at the beginning of my journey, but I had been around the block a few times. And at that point, I was starting to do events where I was sharing table space with my other author friends. So specifically, my previous college professor and mentor, now friend, Tina Jens, and past students of hers, friends that I had made doing her event Gumbo Fiction Salon, other author friends that I had met along the way, sharing that table space with those other authors and just being able to have fun with that. It is such a different vibe sharing a table space with other authors than sitting there by yourself, and just really vibing and having fun and doing the whole sharing of that. Somebody has to go to a panel or go get a food or whatever they have to do to leave the booth, and then you take up that responsibility of, when people ask about their books, you have to equally hype them up as you would your own books and be like, yeah, this story is about this. They're not here right now, but they'll be back later, but I can totally tell you all about their book. It's really cool, blah, blah, blah. And also knowing that the other people at that table are going to equally hype you up and do the same for you. And having that camaraderie and sense of community was just such a formative part of my experience with learning how to do this and becoming the author that I am today. Doing those events as a group or as a duo or whatever really had a huge impact on me, and I learned so much seeing what they brought for their portion of the setup, watching them interact with their readers and with potential readers, and seeing how they decided to do things, seeing how they decide to set up their book displays and the choices they make and all of that. And then of course just everyone sharing advice, everyone sharing their horror stories, just all of the above. It is just such a good experience to have, especially when you're in your earlier days of doing these events. It is so much better to learn those lessons in a group, or at least as a duo, than by yourself. It makes it so much more fun, it makes it easier, and you're going to learn a lot more, a lot faster. Now, today, I consider myself very experienced doing these events, and I do most of them by myself. And the reason for that is not so much that I'm like, oh, I'm too good for doing this with other people or anything like that. It's just that I've gotten to the point that I have so many books and I just take up so much space that it's unfair to other people for me to share the booth with them, as opposed to the way that I used to. That I'm just way too overpowering. I'm going to detract from the rest of the booth. It's basically going to be like this huge thing, and then, oh yeah, this stuff over here. Not that I'm doing anything or putting any less emphasis on their books or anything like that, but just the sheer volume of what I have, that it's like, I have all this stuff, and then there's these books over here. Just visually speaking. And so that's not fair to other people. It's kind of like the idea of, you don't put a best-selling author who has like 400 books next to somebody where it's baby's first convention and they have their very first book. That's a really unfair combo to have at the same table. And not that my friends are noobs or first time anything or anything like that, but just the volume of things that I have and just where I'm at with things, it would be a very unfair experience for them at this point. The exception to that being me doing events now with Neil. He's my partner. So there's a different dynamic going on there, as well as that we have such completely opposite types of books that it works. We're not directly competing in any sense of the imagination. It's very much, if you are not a fan of the type of things I write, you're probably a fan of the things that he writes, and vice versa, because we are just so on opposite ends of the spectrum. It works. And so you're not trying to compete with the same person who likes romance or the same person who likes military sci-fi. It's like, that's all you, hun. Go forth, shine bright, all that. That dynamic works a lot different than sharing another booth space with a friend or another fellow author and stuff like that, is making sure that you're on relatively equal footing so that there isn't that disconnect with what you have available in that single space, and learning that about yourself too. So definitely it was such a wonderful time period to have doing the events with those other authors, and I'm so grateful that I was able to have those experiences. But I'm also really happy with where I'm at now with doing these events confidently on my own, and also doing these events with my partner Neil, that I just feel like I've kind of graduated to a certain level of expertise in taking that step. And it's really empowering to look back on the experiences that I've had and compare them to where I am now, that I feel like I have just moved forward so far from those days. And those days were positive and beautiful and wonderful as they were, but also being able to say, yeah, I've also made steps toward my goals, and I am closer to my goals than I was back then. And also my goals are different now than they were back then. And so being able to see that kind of progress just also crystallizes those experiences even more and makes those memories even more special than they were back when I was making them. I'll close off with this final memory that I look back on with so much fondness. It was actually a panel. So I was at one of the author events that I frequently go to, and I was on a panel with a group of authors, and the author that I was particularly sitting next to, we struck up a conversation before the panel started. We were having a fun time, and hearing the things that that person said after the panel just meant so much to me, so that we got friendly before the panel started, and then we went and we had the panel. And the panel was specifically about advertising your books. And I'm a bit of an expert on that, as I work in corporate settings as a professional social media manager. I am deeply experienced with social media and marketing and branding and all of that, and I bring all of that to the table with working as an author. So bringing that advice to this particular panel, this other author that I had gotten friendly with, obviously she was there because she also had a certain level of expertise. That's the point of panels, is that you're supposed to be an expert in the topic that you're supposed to be talking about, although unfortunately sometimes that's not the case, but that's neither here nor there. But they knew what they were talking about as well. But that they said that they learned a lot from the things that I had to say, the things that they never even considered. And one of the specific things was the fact that I use my cosplay as a huge cornerstone of my branding. Is that you might not remember my name, you might not remember my books, but you are going to remember me. You're going to remember that crazy lady that was dressed crazy and sparkly at the event. You're going to remember that. It's memorable. And not only that, I'm very visible. I oftentimes wear bright colors. I wear flamboyant outfits. Like, it is hard to miss me, even in a giant room of people. And so one of the things that I do is I call it the Pied Piper effect, where I go and I talk on panels, and people are just fascinated by me, by what I have to say, all of that, that then after the panel, they follow me over to the dealer's hall and come check out my books. And even if they don't do it right after the panel and follow after me, even if they do it later in the day, they're still going to be able to find me, because they're going to remember, oh yeah, that crazy lady with the bright flame hair, or the crazy lady with the big pink bunny ears, or, you know, however I'm dressed that day. It's going to be super memorable, and it's going to be really easy to find me in the the vendors area because I'm so highly visible. And so that was the piece of information that this author really took to heart because they watched it happen in person. They saw the people that were on the panel with asking us questions, interacting with us, and just the amount of people that just were so excited about just me existing as I am. And the amount of people that followed me back to my booth, and this author also followed me back to my booth. And just seeing that Pied Piper effect in action is what really made them stop and think. And they were like, wow, that is just so smart that you're using this thing that you would do anyway, that you enjoy doing, and you've made it into a core branding thing is just so cool, and it obviously works. And they actually went on after the event. They did kind of a little like article about this was my experience at this author event, blah, blah, blah. And they made a mention of me in the article talking about how it is so important to differentiate yourself as an author and find out what it is exactly about you that makes you you, but then at the same time to make sure you stay genuine. And they talked about how they can't do what I do because that's not genuine for them. They're not the kind of person to spend 3 hours getting dressed to do an event. That's not a thing that they want to do, that they like to do. It's not who they are. And it would be very disingenuous for them to try to suddenly make that be their author branding. Whereas it's very genuine for me. I've always been like this. It's just now I'm also utilizing it for my books to sell them and to be at events. It's an excuse, basically. And just being able to be one of those points for a fellow author, that they get to have a learning experience and they also get to share that with their community. I love fostering those kind of things, and that's what I think is so important about doing panels and doing these kind of events and making sure that you're not ignoring the other authors. The other authors there are just as important as the readers. That yes, the readers are the people that are more likely to buy your book than your fellow authors, although it does happen a lot. I have a lot of fellow authors who buy my books at events. But make sure that you're not ignoring your fellow authors at the event just because you're like, I'm here for book sales, because you never know what kind of impact that could have, as well as it's so important to build that community. Even if, let's say, you never see that author again, having a positive experience with someone at an event can go so much further than you could imagine. You never know what could happen. It could suddenly be the catalyst for you going viral for the right reasons and for whatever reason. So always make sure that you are making yourself vulnerable, making yourself open to having those kind of experiences, and to not just chalk things up to, well, this probably won't result in a sale, so I don't care. It's important to get outside of that mentality because it's actually going to hurt you in the long run and make you probably not sell books. I love having those kind of connections with my fellow authors at my events, and I have just as much fun meeting them and spending time with them as I do with the readers. So those are some of my favorite memories that I've had over the years. There's so many more. If I sat here for hours and hours and hours, I could wax on poetic, but those are the big ones that come to mind, the most important ones that I feel that are key to having a good event. So feel free to share in the comments below what some of your favorite memories are as an author or even as a reader attending these kind of events, and how that made you feel and why it was important to you. I would love to hear from y'all. So I hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to give it a like, and if you're new, subscribe. All right, y'all, thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye bye.